David? He brought us in Washington. Hey, Commissioner.
How are you? Yes, nice to see you. I'm hanging in. How about you? Yeah, we're going to find out who Mr. Jim Brown is and deal with that issue. I got to find out who he is.
You don't know who he is?
I do and I
How you
don't.
doing, Governor?
You all right?
Good to see you, yes.
People can only
Let's
write
go.
yes
Hello,
or no
folks.
after I've
Smarts
done
in the
what
house.
they've asked. I'd love to.
You want me good?
Just watch that bag.
Shall we?
Yep.
Give us 1 second.
No. That's the same thing.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today at Secaucus's Frank Lautenberg Station. I pass through here often. It is good to be back. Diana, it was roughly a year and a half ago that I first introduced my intention to nominate Diane Gutierrez Scacchetti to serve as our Commissioner of Transportation and, importantly, as the Chair of New Jersey Transit. So that was a pretty good memory, right? At that time, Diane and I committed to the hard work of restoring NJ Transit for the hundreds of thousands of rail and bus riders who depend on it, as well as for the dedicated workers who were the faces of this agency. We then brought the band a little bit larger and added Kevin Corbett, and brought him in to lead NJ Transit's renewal, and Kevin brought with him a team with a new customer-focused mindset. And I'm honored to be joined by both of them today and a variety of their senior team members. I want to thank them for all the hard work. I also want to recognize our brothers and sisters in labor. Representing the ATU is Vice President Orlando Riley. Orlando, great to have you here. Ray Graves is in Washington, so not only is Orlando here, but he sent his brother David, who's here as well. So great to have you as well. Barry Kushner from the IFPTE, as well as the Hudson County Central Labor Council is here. And we got a passel of folks from SMART, Jerome Johnson, Greg Roberts, Scott Spratt, Rashonda Brown, Ross Corbin. We got Janet Chernetz from Tri-State Transportation, and a whole number of other VIPs. I have to say before I continue, I took the 3240 from Red Bank to Secaucus Junction today. It was on time. It was a wonderful experience. And it was unannounced, so they didn't know. It was not rigged. It was not, the deck was not stacked. It bears remembering that we are standing at a station whose name honors one of the foremost and most effective advocates for New Jersey's mass transportation commuters, the late Senator Frank Lautenberg, who I counted as a very close personal friend. I believe it may have been his last overseas congressional delegation where he and his wife Bonnie visited Tammy and me and our family in Berlin. He was as close a friend as I had. And it is equally as important to remember that his legacy was brutally assaulted by Governor Christie's actions canceling the ARC Tunnel project and separately stripping NJ Transit of 90% of its operating subsidy. So I presented, just think about the starkness in this comparison. In the budget we presented in early March, we had a total state investment of $407.5 million. In fiscal 16, which is only 4 fiscal years ago, do you know what the state support was? $33 million. $33 million. So anybody who says that we're not serious about doing the work and putting the money on the barrel that we need to fix this organization hasn't looked at the math. And I will say today, as I've said on many occasions, through thick and thin, through the wrong management, the underfunding, the ignoring of federal safety guidelines, the men and women represented by this murderer's row in the front row who go to work and went to work and still go to work every single day to serve customers and commuters never wavered, and we will never forget that as a state. So God bless you all, right? So the decision to cancel the ARC tunnel, the decision to gut at one point the state subsidy by 90%, these short-sighted and wrong-headed decisions turned our once heralded mass transit network into one of the worst over a period of just 8 years. Literally, it was not that long ago that NJ Transit was rated as the #1 rail and bus commuter network in America. And it will be again, by the way, right, folks? Amen. We, especially these folks behind me and in front of me, are working day in and day out to right these wrongs and to return service and reliability to our bus and train riders. Last year, the budget we enacted made a down payment on our commitment to NJ Transit, more than doubling state support as a first step year over year, to reinvesting in our people, to fast-tracking new equipment and parts procurement to speed repairs, to refilling the hollowed-out ranks of drivers and train engineers, and to holding the line on commuter fares. And there's been a lot of progress in just 1 year. For example, the first quarter of 2019 saw an overall 47% decrease in cancellations versus the first quarter of last year. 47% decrease. Additionally, on-time performance for each of the past 3 months is up over the same 3 months last year. But we are not there yet. We are spiking no footballs. There is still plenty of more work ahead, but we are clearly moving in the right direction. And I say this all the time, we have to bat 1,000. I know this team and their colleagues are committed to batting 1,000, because if it's your train that's the one train that's late, or the one train that's annulled or canceled, you don't feel very good about overall statistics that are going in the right direction. You're frustrated by that. Let me just tell folks who are watching, I'm frustrated by that. Our goal is to do nothing less than to bat 1,000. But we can't ignore the enormous progress that is being made toward that objective. And for us, this is existential. It's this simple. Getting NJ Transit right is essential to our economic future. We cannot build a stronger middle class if people can't get to work or to school. And I put it right up alongside education as the two levers we pull deeply and most often to get this state back on its feet. The budget that we proposed 3 months ago set out to continue our progress, investing more directly in NJ Transit, while also eliminating much of the wasteful fund raids and diversions that have been used in the past. I said to the legislature that I would be open to increasing our direct support for NJ Transit, and the budget that they sent back, in fact, did just that. And we said from moment one, if there was a way forward to increase the funding, we would be not only open to that, but constructive. As I've said many times, the budget the legislature sent me upholds many, if not most, frankly, of our administration's core investments in the middle class and in our economy, and that is a really good thing. But whether it is NJ Transit or any other issue, our goal cannot simply be to go year from year, stagger through June 30th to wake up on July 1st to face the same reality again. Wash, rinse, dry, repeat. The question has been asked many times by many people. Is America capable of doing the big things anymore? I certainly hope so. But I know that in New Jersey, we cannot do the big things necessary to prepare for our future and that of our children if we continue to think small. We must invest in the long term. That is why I will continue to press for the long-term and sustainable revenues we need to give NJ Transit riders the peace of mind that the investments being made this year won't disappear in the next. And this is where the millionaire's tax makes even more sense. Releasing the pressure of cobbling together resources to meet our obligations for our schools and communities and for property tax relief. And by the way, our budget includes well over $1 billion of direct property tax relief, 99 point something% of it into the middle class. It's also where the fee on opioid manufacturers and distributors and asking gun owners to pay a little more for a permit to buy another handgun makes sense, so we can free more resources to put directly into other priorities like NJ Transit. And I want these investments to flow into NJ Transit without delay. NJ Transit is one of the starkest, and I would argue most consequential examples of how the wrong choices by a governor or a legislature can adversely affect the people we serve. If New Jersey that we inherited 18 months ago was the turnaround opportunity, the turnaround story that we are now living of America, inside that story, the quintessential turnaround opportunity and story is indeed NJ Transit. Make no mistake, I have very strong feelings about some of the legislature's wrong choices in our next budget, and I will continue to press our case for smart investments and tax fairness. Standing with our middle class, standing with our brothers and sisters in labor remains just as relevant on July 1 as it is on June 30th. Our deeply held values of fairness and equity do not expire at the end of any fiscal year. But I feel just as strongly that going into our July 4th holiday, I cannot and I will not subject our residents to the inconveniences they would suffer under a government shutdown. I want our families to know that come Monday, July 1st, our investments in them will be made without delay and that state services will be available to them. If anyone was listening to Ask the Governor last night, I got a caller from Curleen, from Bayonne, who pleaded with me in the starkest terms that she was worried about how a shutdown would affect her and her family. And I want to give her and folks up and down the state a sense of security. I want them to plan their July 4th celebrations at our state parks and beaches, knowing the gates will be open. People work hard all year to enjoy these great state resources on this holiday. Closing state beaches and parks only punishes the innocent. The final details on the budget, which we are still parsing through, and we will deal with them, I promise you, responsibly as fast as we can. The final details on the budget that I sign or will sign are still to be determined, but I will meet our constitutional deadline. Yet while this budget continues my administration's historic investment in NJ Transit, it does not prepare us to continue these essential investments which are allowing us to keep fares stable for our commuters while we work to improve services. And by the way, let me say it officially, fares will be held flat, Madam Chairwoman, Executive Director, at least until June 30th, 2020. Just as with any number of my priorities, it is time to stop repeating the mistakes of the past and time to stop doing the things that created the mess that we are now cleaning up. The signing of the budget will not be an end, but just another step forward in our work to make the case for the sustainable revenues we need to ensure the sustainable investments that our future demands. We will continue to take our case directly to the people of New Jersey, and I know I'll have a lot of company here in this front row and elsewhere around the state, and to the officials they elect to represent them and their values. And we will continue our hard work, day in and day out, of proving the value of these investments, especially the investment we are making in NJ Transit, both in its people and in the people it serves. It is now my enormous pleasure and honor to introduce the Commissioner of Transportation of the Department of Transportation and the New Jersey Board Chair, Diane Gutierrez Scacchetti.
Thanks. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Board of New Jersey Transit, we just want to say how grateful we are for the financial support that allows us to accelerate efforts to enhance the complete customer journey on New Jersey Transit. which begins long before they ever step onto a train, bus, or light rail vehicle. These enhancements can be done now and in the months ahead while we continue to work to graduate new locomotive engineers from their 20-month training courses. Some of the enhancements that this budget will allow us to conduct are station refreshes. Customers deserve clean, welcoming stations and terminals, and NJT will initiate a series of improvements to rail stations and bus facilities, performing deep cleaning, painting, concrete repairs, power washing, and other work that can be completed quickly to enhance the attractiveness of these facilities. Onboard experience is equally as important. Customers should enjoy a pleasant onboard experience when riding buses and trains. New Jersey Transit will expedite repairs to doors, seats, and lavatories to ensure that these systems are in good working order. In addition, we will inspect HVAC systems to ensure heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems are in good working order on buses and rail cars. In addition, the money will allow more and better bus service, helping to relieve congestion and overcrowding on the most heavily used bus routes in Hudson and other counties around the state. For instance, by more efficiently reallocating resources, New Jersey Transit has added 12 additional trips to the number 119 that serves the rapidly growing Jersey City Heights area. While I was here, I was informed by the staff that we broke a milestone. We had 5,000 peak trips this morning going into Manhattan, and only 5 of them were off schedule. Is that correct? Did I get it right? That's 1/1000th of a percent. That means many people are getting where they need to go on time. And we talk a lot about rail because of just the magnitude of people it moves. It is important to note buses move more than rail does every day, and both must work. In addition, station enhancements will be undertaken. Understandable announcements are key to commuters being able to catch the right train on the right track at the right time. Too many of New Jersey Transit's public address systems are old, inadequate, and putting out garbled messages. New Jersey Transit will begin the process of replacing the old equipment so that commuters get clear, immediate updates that they need. We will have more staff to help direct our customers. Engineers, bus and light rail operators, and police are just among a few. Proper service relies on vehicle operators, and customer safety and security rely on well-staffed police forces. This money will allow the continued acceleration of training for new engineers, the continued hiring of more bus operators, and the hiring of 19 new police officers. When it comes to fare collection, you know that that's an important part of any transit operation. New Jersey Transit will accelerate its modernization of fare collection system using state-of-the-art technology, including a first-ever New Jersey Transit fare card to make taking the train, bus, and light rail easier and more convenient. And as you know, we continue to try to enhance our customer service programs. We have hired a dedicated customer advocate who is here with us today. He is our customer experience officer. Stuart is here, where Stuart's in the back. So you can all find him if you have questions, but he is a member of the executive staff, and he is increasing our responsiveness and transparency by expanding membership of the Board of Directors and the North and South Jersey Advisory Committees. I've read some questions about the North Highlands report. This will also allow us to begin the process of implementing some of those recommendations that come out of the North Highlands report. I look forward to not only the next fiscal year, but the next couple of years. We have done so much work in 18 months. Thank you to the governor, who is a tough taskmaster, but certainly also understands the challenges that we face every day at New Jersey Transit. I also want to compliment all of the staff, from Kevin Corbett on down to our bus cleaners. They are all committed to making certain that you have the best experience possible every day. This additional money that the governor has been able to secure for New Jersey Transit is incredibly important to their ability to do that. Thank you, Governor.
Well done. Next figure. Thank you. Stuart, raise your hand again. You may want to, at some point, the folks here ought to get a chance to get to know Stuart. He would have raised his hand earlier, but he was fielding some complaints back there. That's not true. But Diane, thank you for your leadership, both at the Department of Transportation and certainly as chair of NJ Transit. And the litany of things that you mentioned in terms of how we're going to spend this money and the data that underlies the progress we're making is extremely compelling. I mentioned that Diane and I stood here about a year and a half ago and announced my intention to nominate her. It wasn't too long thereafter that she and I each concluded overwhelmingly that the right guy to lead this organization day in and day out was Kevin Corbett. So please help me welcome the Executive Director of NJ Transit, Kevin Corbett.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor and Diane. Certainly the support I get from them is just so critical to making the progress that we do. If you don't have someone covering your back, you can't. It's hard to keep focus on the real mission. And I think if you look at some of the posters on the side, I'd like to touch on some of our main efforts and what we've accomplished. It's been a while. Day by day, you get in the weeds, and sometimes you need to step back and look. Two of the main pillars of our effort the last year have been on our people and our infrastructure. Over the past year, we've taken major steps in rebuilding the forces of engineers and bus operators needed to deliver better service for our customers. As we announced yesterday, we just had our 500th new bus operator graduate since the start of last year to help serve customers. We are taking delivery of 182 new cruiser buses this year, and the Board of Directors has approved a contract for 85 new articulated buses, the longer buses that hold more people. I know your father loves those. But this equipment, when combined with the 500 new operators, what that really means to the average rider is that results in more than 1,900, 2,000 passenger trips a day. And where that means, it may not sound like a lot, 2,000 people a day, but if you take that over roughly 250 work days, that's 500,000 more passengers we're going to be carrying this year on new buses with new drivers than we were able to carry last year. How many cities move 500,000 people all year, and we are doing this incrementally above what we're already doing because of the resources we've had. Bus has a shorter lead time in manufacturing and in the training, but also on the rail side, we've set a record-setting 6 concurrent locomotive engineering training classes now underway. We've had 1 class of engineers complete their training last month, many of you know that, and we have 3 more classes scheduled to graduate by the end of the year. In all, we've brought on more than 100 engineer trainees, and I love to see them out on the line and when I'm riding myself, up in the cab cars, and we intend to keep that pipeline full and flowing. In December, our Board of Directors approved a contract with Bombardier for 113 new multi-level rail cars to replace single-level aero cars that are more than 40 years old. You can see those are the ones with the seats that your kid, if you have kids, they love to bounce up and down on. Most riders, that's not their favorite. The multi-levels with the 2x2 seating, aside from the capacity, will also have USB ports and other amenities that you would expect to improve the customer experience. And obviously that also increases the reliability, the mean distance between failures, all the good metrics that you have when you have new equipment versus equipment that belonged to the old Central New Jersey Railroad. Over the past year, we've improved the customer experience as well through the use of technology. As many of you know, we've updated the mobile app to provide push notifications, making it easier for customers to receive the real-time information that is critical to their travel and giving them advance notice on that. We also updated to be able to provide for digital payment, options like Apple and Google Pay. We have a refreshed homepage for our website with a new look and modern feel, and our updated homepage features streamlined navigation and easier access to essential information. We're also preparing for the future by finally advancing long-stalled Sandy resilience projects to protect the transportation infrastructure and our equipment from the effects of extreme weather and other emergencies. We realize the resources that, Governor, thank you, that you and the legislature provide us are very precious, and our team at New Jersey Transit is working very hard to prove to you and our riders that money is being well managed and well spent. We've made significant strides, but this is only the beginning as we continue to advance our mission of providing our customers with the safest and most reliable transportation system in the country. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Great job. 2 comments. Dan Bryan also loves bouncing up and down on those seats, so he will bemoan those trains being retired. Secondly, slightly more seriously, you've probably sensed that we're morphing from, over the past 18 months, from what we're going to do, although we still talk about that, to a much heavier dose of what we're actually doing. So this is less prospective and more here and now, what is actually happening. We still have broad, I know they've got in their teams, broad aspirations to reclaim that #1 ranking of the best bus and rail network in America. But there's much more of a focus, I think you've heard it today, on what is actually happening. With that, we'll take a couple of questions. Elise. I'm in many respects conceding nothing, in the sense that, as I mentioned in my remarks, and I mentioned over the past week, I guess, since we got the legislature's budget, we got an overwhelming amount of our priorities funded. And we are thankful for that. There are a couple of exceptions, and I continue to be really upset, and I think it's tone deaf to cut the community college opportunity grant amount. And we talked a lot about that yesterday. But the question of tax fairness, Barry and I were just having this conversation, will not change on Monday. We are not relenting on tax fairness and tax equity, and that includes, most importantly, a millionaire's tax, but it includes the opioid manufacturer and distributor fee, it includes the corporate responsibility fee, it includes gun fees. If anything, our megaphone will get larger and louder. We are not going away on that. Between now and Sunday, there will not be. But again, stay tuned for Monday, I promise you. Brenda?
Okay.
So I've said a lot, and I got tagged with a Groundhog Day notion, so I'm going to tweak it a little bit. I've been saying all options remain on the table. I've just taken one option off the table. I can't play politics with innocent lives in this state, and I will not do that. I'm elected to discharge responsibly my constitutional duty. So I've taken shutting this government down off the table. I've taken nothing else off the table, period. But I will say this, we had very constructive meetings, and I want to give the majority leader, Senator Weinberg, a shout out here on NJ Transit right almost from the first moment we presented our budget, and you can assume that where the legislature and we rested on NJ Transit, that funding will remain. Please. Can you stay back a little bit? Yeah, I will have both Kevin and Diane come in to amplify this. I'm a big believer in year over year, so like periods. So I think it's, particularly with all the Amtrak work that they do in the summer, I think it's folly to compare June of one year to the month before in May. I don't think that's a fair, plus you've got schools getting out and you've got just different habits. But I'm a big believer in comparing January to January, June to June, and you're already seeing, please take some time to look at this, you're already seeing enormous progress, and let's not underestimate that. Secondly, as I mentioned, if we're making enormous overall progress, but it's your train that's late, or your train doesn't show up, that overall progress doesn't do a thing for you, and I completely get that. You're frustrated, I'm frustrated. So the answer is we wouldn't be here today if we were not already focused and want you to focus on the data that's already happening as we sit here. I believe, this is one last comment, these folks can come in here. I believe it won't be until the 6 classes of engineers are all graduated, not just one of them. I believe it won't be until we're through the Amtrak summer work that they do. At a minimum, those 2 steps before you could see, again, another quantum level of progress. And let's also remember one thing as part of that. We can control that which we can control. The right management and leadership, the right funding, adherence to the federal safety requirements, hiring the right amount of bus drivers and engineers. We control all that, and we are controlling all of it. The problem is we can't control that which we cannot control. So we have a great relationship with Amtrak, unlike the last administration. but we still have to work with Amtrak when they are doing the repairs and service work that they're doing this summer as they've done for the past several. We still desperately need the Trump administration to fund the Gateway family of projects. We are working that order hard, but that is something that we cannot completely control. I'd ask either of you to come up and, you want to talk about metrics going forward?
I would. I'm a big believer in metrics, as everybody, my staff certainly is aware of. You can't improve what you can't measure. I think on the bus side, as I say, if you look at what we've done already, because there's a shorter lead time, both in the equipment purchases as these buses are rolling out, combined with bus operators. As I said, this year we'll be able to carry 500,000, be moving 500,000 more people than we were last year on new buses. That's a pretty significant improvement. Rail is longer, the lead time. Rail cars take 3-4 years to be built. I mean, you've seen what those are, the multi-levels. But in the meantime, the real issue has been both filling the ranks, certainly of trainmen as well as engineers, but you need an engineer obviously to pull the train out. And a year ago, we had already been a few months into the training program that we've talked about. We're now 4 months away from the October. We had one graduate in May, but we have October, November, and January. It depends on the graduation rate. It's very tough. It's like becoming an airline pilot, so within that range. But when we're looking, beyond this fourth quarter, as we get into next year, it will be at the level we need to be able to provide all service and have an ample bench.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
They're already seeing it. You have to look at the data. It's already happening. You'll see a quantum increase, I think, by the fourth quarter of this year. Right. Please.
Replacements for, that's going to be as kind of an ASAP issue for us. So we've already started doing some of the cleaning in some of the station blitzes, right? Everybody wants to sit on a clean chair, not touch something that's, not clean. That's starting now. Now that we know that we're getting this additional money, we'll begin the process of looking at how quickly we can put in those announcement systems, right? And it's not, right, you get on a plane, you can't understand the pilot. It's very frustrating. So it's going to be important for us to make that a priority so people can clearly understand the message. And you know what? That's half of our problem, maybe more than that. If people understand what we're telling them and we're giving them good information, humans make great decisions. So we need to make certain that we have that done. So it'll be a priority, but this isn't money we planned on receiving, so we're going to need a little bit of ramp up time, but it will be very short.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you. Please. Brenda, I wouldn't leave you hanging, I promise you. Is there any plans for Lautenberg?
Particularly the two issues to what Diane's saying and the previous question. One of the things we've started in this last year is really do a critical needs assessment and looking at all our facilities, what they need as far as capital investment or operating improvements or maintenance improvements. So in this station in particular, Elise may remember the HVAC issue, and certainly escalators, vertical escalators and elevators. Vertical transportation is a constant issue for all transit systems, and we're getting ahead of that on those simple things like that.
You good? Yep. Brenda gets the last question. That microphone doesn't do me any good, by the way. I feel a little bit. You watched the debate last night when they couldn't hear and I thought that he's only sitting 20 feet in front of them, but they couldn't hear him. I'm in the same boat. It is in. I thought I was clear about that. It is in. And again, this is one, and the reason why I'm prepared to go out on a limb and speak to that particular line item is this is one that got done the right way. Senator Weinberg reached out to our team and said, listen, I want to sit down with the governor, with my team and your team, and just sort of parse through how we can get to an even better place on funding. And the only quid pro quo we had with that discussion, other than I still have to certify the revenues, and by the way, we're not waiting till Sunday to keep you in suspense for any reason other than we just got this a week ago, and it's an almost $40 billion budget, and we are working morning, noon, and night to meet a Sunday deadline, which we will do. The only caveat we had, other than we need to know where the resources are coming from, the revenues, is we would not relent on undoing the fund diversion from the Turnpike Authority, which we felt strongly about. We got to a good place with Senator Weinberg and her team, and that's why I'm prepared to talk about this particular investment, because it was done the right way, collectively. Again, I want to thank, do you have one last one? Real quick, though. Yep. Listen, I support the fare hikes. And by the way, the Port Authority, I believe, beginning today is having open hearings, and I'm very happy about that, public hearings, and they need to hear from the public. I support it somewhat grudgingly because it's a regressive tax, but I support it because I'm convinced, and our team is convinced, that New Jersey commuters will benefit enormously from the added revenues, and whether that's the Port Authority bus terminal, whether it's a better experience on the path, and importantly, the whole range of projects that are underway at Newark Liberty. I believe because of its good value for money, in the sense that we can see where the money is going and New Jersey will benefit, I can support it. You rode the train with me today. Yeah. Don't be mad, I didn't know who you were either. Great. 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 A belated welcome to New Jersey. Thank you all. So listen, I want to thank again Diane and Kevin and their teams, our brothers and sisters in labor, people like Jana who keeps us honest to make sure we're doing a good job. To everybody else out there, thank you for your support and your great work. This is the turnaround story inside of America's turnaround story, and it is happening. Thank you all. Have a nice week next week.